Welcome to Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we're taking some time to talk about a few historical beers. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. We're in person. If you're watching the video,
together again.
We are in person. Might be a bit echoey because we're in a different room than usual.
We are in an Airbnb. My parents are visiting.
Yes.
I've taken them to Canterbury, and then I was like, well, we need to record an episode, and we have some things we need to share, so...
Here we are, in an Airbnb run back to Canterbury.
It's actually quite a snazzy Airbnb, actually.
Yeah,
if you look around it, which you cannot see, it's very, Art Deco, very snazzy.
Yeah,
it's like nice. An art house. I like it. It's nice.
There's a blue moose's head.
There is a massive
in the front room, which is a bit weird, but you know.
It's quite cool though. It's very artsy, but also vintage, but also not. It's interesting. It's good. I like it, but it is a little bit echoey, and I will warning. People may just come in to get drinks because we are in the kitchen space. Yeah. Those are the stairs. Rick may walk down the stairs. We don't know.
Phelan might join us.
And then she might leave us because she's fickle. So
yeah. But here we are. So today, this was your idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, because and for the life of me, I struggled to find the actual beer. So what's really funny about this is I struggled to find the actual beer that kicked off the idea to do this, because I originally saw a beer, and I don't remember who it was. Have never been able to find it since. Probably earlier this year, maybe springtime, and they had released a beer that was based on an old recipe, and I was like, that would be a really cool idea for a podcast. I kind of made a mental note of it, and I think I probably even took a screenshot of it at the time, and then must have been phone clear out, deleted it, or thought I'd remember it somehow or something. And then it kind of came back up when Elusive and Partizan released their collaboration. It was a mild that was released based on the recipe was quite an old recipe, which we'll get into in a minute. And I saw that and I was like, wow, okay. Around the same time, another brewery, Holy Goat, put out something that was a bit of a historic recipe, and we were already going to put in an order with them for something else anyways, and I was like, well, hang on, there's two here now if I could just find what that first one was. It didn't happen, but we filled in the gaps here, but that's basically where the origin of this episode came.
So thinking about historical recipes, so we're going to start with, because we are in Kent, we're going to start with classic Bishop's Finger.
I know nothing about this.
Shepherd Neame. So Shepherd Neame is literally up the road.
So I guess that was also when we originally did this. We're like, we could just do oldest breweries.
Yeah,
we could throw some of that in there, and we're like, oh, Shepherd Neame. Yeah. And then I'm in Kent, so it felt like, well, we kind of had to.
That makes sense. So Shepherd Neame claim to be the oldest brewery in England. They were established in 1698, but there is evidence that brewing took place there long before that, according to their website. So I think there's a bit of contention around this, but that's what they say on their website, and that's what they base their brand on. Does it say on the bottle?
Those tippy taps you hear, those are Phelan coming in the room, even if you can't see her. You know she's here because you hear tippy tappies of little puppy feet.
Yeah. It doesn't say on here, but they claim to be the oldest English brewery. They even brewed through the World War, so I think quite a few breweries either got shut down during the war or got bombed out.
It says this award-winning beer from Britain's oldest brewer.
There you go. Britain's oldest brewer. There you go. But they continued to brew throughout the World Wars, so that they are continuously have been brewing since 1698.
And they're vegan approved. Look at that.
Vegan
approved.
Look at that. There's nothing in my pocket. Sorry.
Oh, she just wants cuddles. Phelan's just coming up and doing a nudge on the leg. She's boop.
Having a
you're part of it. You're wanted. You're here. That's great. Now we ignore you.
This is also one of the... Yes, it is. It is. This is also one of Britain's oldest bottled beers.
Oh.
So it was first brewed in 1958 and it's been brewed ever since then. So it's one of the oldest bottled beers in the UK as well. So it's called, you may wonder, why is it called Bishop's Finger?
I do wonder.
You do wonder. Right, so it's called Bishop's Finger.
It's a weird name, isn't it?
It is a bit of a weird name. It takes its name from the finger-shaped signposts which pointed pilgrims on their way to the tomb of Thomas à Becket in Canterbury. And those were apparently called Bishop's Fingers. There you go.
Fun fact.
It is the first strong ale to be brewed by Shepherd Neame after malt rationing was eased in the late 1950s. So this is, it's on the bottle it says it's a Kentish strong ale. When we classify it by things like BJCP, it's actually a strong bitter, which you might also hear that style called extra special bitter, extra strong bitter, and ESB. But Fuller's have got the trademark on ESB, so no one else is allowed to call it that. So Shepherd Neame can't call it that. But this is a recommended style if you want to try a strong bitter and learn what it is. So this is a recommended style if you want to practice and find out what that style tastes like. Of course, yes, yes. Of course, Phelan is telling us that we should actually drink this on cask.
She was
if
like,
you find
come on,
it.
guys.
She's like, come on, drink this on cask. If you can find it on cask anywhere, you could definitely find it on cask in Canterbury. In fact, there is a bar called the Bishop's Finger, which probably sells Bishop's Finger.
Maybe
because
I'll give it a go tomorrow.
Shepherd Neame's pub. So, should we crack into this?
Yeah, let's crack into it. Phelan's getting aggy. She's like, come on, guys,
come on,
drink it.
Drink the beer. Drink the beer.
I love pouring ASMR. I'll let you pour it.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
I'll be mum. Did I say that in the US?
No.
I'll be mother.
It's
It's a tea pouring thing. Oh no, you won't have done that because you pour all the tea in the sea.
Yeah, we do. We chuck the tea.
Chuck
That's
the
what we
tea.
do. We chuck the tea.
There's that, like, it's an old thing where people are like, I'll be mother and I'll pour the tea. Cheers. Oh, we can do that because we're in person. That's exciting.
Oh, I love that smell.
Yeah, it's very...
I'm like, I can't... So
Rich
I'm going to
malty.
be very honest
Mhm.
in the fact that, like, when I think Shepherd Neame, I think my thoughts aren't, like, as a female into craft beer, when I think Shepherd Neame, I don't 100% think really, like, I don't think negative things, but I just don't feel as included in that, if that makes sense.
I would,
So my
I would
thought is...
agree with that.
I don't expect to like the smell. I expect it
Yeah.
to kind of just be a bit old, maybe a bit bland. I mean, I've had a not so great experience at a Shepherd Neame
Yeah,
pub,
you
which I
had a
won't
good
talk about,
experience,
but I had a not great experience. It wasn't the pub's fault
No.
by any
It
means.
was a person that frequented that pub.
Oh, yes. But it was not the pub's fault. But I think
No.
for me, when I think of Shepherd Neame, I just go, oh, I don't know. But this smells really
They're a
beautiful.
very traditional brewery, I would say. Very richly malty.
Mm. And I definitely get that, like, dried fruit.
Yeah.
Smell and the dried fruit taste, and it is really lovely. And actually, I think because
It's like toffee.
when you were saying you can kind of get this in a supermarket if you wanted, obviously here you could probably, like you say,
I got it in the co-op down the road.
I think that's the thing is when I think about those, I tend to think of the more like bland
Yeah.
traditional beers that you can get on a supermarket shelf, and I was kind of expecting it to like not be as appealing based on aroma already, and it was.
Yeah. I really want to like Shepherd Neame because it's nearby and it's like the oldest brewery and it's traditional, blah blah blah. And just some of their beers I'm just like, like I'm like, oh, okay, fine. But I do enjoy Bishop's Finger. Like if it was what was available and there wasn't a lot else there, I'd be like, yeah, I'll have a Bishop's Finger.
There's like quite a dryness to it as well.
Yeah.
It's quite nice, and I feel like this would be
because it's
really good with snacks.
Yeah, so it's a bitter. It's a bitter. So it's essentially a pale ale.
Yeah.
the British bitters are in that pale ale family. So it should be, very drinkable, sessionable, very good with snacks indeed. It comes in a clear bottle,
which I'm not a fan of when I see that.
Yeah, that's always a bit of a
that's
no-no.
a Neddy no-no there.
And I don't think they do this. I was reading about it, and interestingly, this has an EU protected geographical indication. So it's protected, which recognises its unique provenance. Uniquely, it is brewed to a charter which states it can only be brewed by the head brewer on a Friday.
So oddly specific.
And that it must be brewed using 100% natural ingredients, Kentish hops and barley, and the brewery's own artisanal mineral water. So it can only be brewed on a Friday.
I love
that's
how they're
weird,
like Fridays only.
Right, I was like, that's weird. When I was reading that today, I was like,
what if they
that's weird.
What if they really need to get an order out because they've got supplies, they've got to go.
They've got to plan it and they've got to brew it on Friday.
Yeah. But then what if someone's like, I got COVID. Friday's not happening.
Too bad. You're not getting Bishop's Finger unless it's brewed on Friday.
Can you imagine? You're like, sorry guys, we cannot stop. We were unable to brew this Friday. There's a lot happening. Things didn't go right. The brewer got COVID. It's not happening. And they were like, can you imagine the look on a supplier's face?
Right, you can't have it because you can't brew it.
Or they had to call it something else.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know, the bishop's fist or something like that. They're like, we can't call it that. They're like a Pope high five or something like that. They're like, we can't call it Bishop's Finger because we didn't brew it on a Friday. It was brewed on a Saturday.
Terrible. But I thought that was really interesting.
That's very interesting.
And that it's got to be brewed with Kentish hops and barley. That's really interesting. Which also, to me, was putting it in a glass bottle is not the best way to do it because those hops are going to get light struck.
Yeah.
Because there's no protection from the coloured glass. So if you buy this in a bottle, try and get a fresh one because it could quite easily get light struck because it's in this clear bottle.
And I guess when you're buying it from a supermarket or a convenience store or so, if you're just I kind of want to try it and you happen to be someplace that
beware,
you don't know,
it might be skunked.
But you also I guess that's the thing is you don't know how it's been transported to the store. You don't know how that store's kept it.
Even if they're kept on a high
if they're kept on a high shelf near a window
near the strip lights, that can do it as well. So so if you get a bad one, it's possible to get a bad one because they are in glass bottles. But circling back to our chat about feeling like Shepherd Neame's not really for women. When I was having a little research earlier this afternoon, I found on their front page of their website celebrating women in brewing.
That's pretty cool.
And it's find out how women have helped shape the world of beer and pubs. Click here. So it's it's a web page that they put up for International Women's Day.
Oh wow! Oh, they haven't taken
this
it down
year, and they haven't taken it down yet. And they were sharing daily posts in March, talking about women. So there's, did women create beer? The answer to that is
yes. Answer to that is yes.
You don't need to read. I mean, you can go and read it. I'll put the link in the show notes. But the answer is yes. Yes, we did. Feisty females. Their archivist John Owen takes a look at some of the key women in the life of Shepherd Neame that have helped shape the brewery over the years. So that's interesting. If you want to have a look at that, and then it names some women that work for Shepherd Neame. So that's quite interesting as well. So I thought that was good because
that was on plan, by the way. That was when I mentioned that. I didn't know. I saw you pull up a website as I was saying that, and I was like, "Oh, I must have accidentally stumbled upon something here."
And so one of their technical brewers is a lady, Danielle Whelan, and there was another one. I thought they had another. The brewing planning manager. She makes sure that Bishop's Finger is brewed on a Friday. Is Nicola Allen. So there you go. And then there's a bunch of other ladies that, if you're interested, I'll put that in the show notes. Go and have a look at that because actually I thought that was quite interesting that they were highlighting that.
That is quite interesting. And I guess, like I said, my comments are more just my own personal opinion based on my experience. I said my experience a bit. Like I said, the pub that I had that bad experience in, I mean, that was nothing to do with the pub itself or the beer or anything like that. It was to do with the people that were in there. And I think at the time, like, there was 2 women behind the bar, so it's not like it was even a male-heavy atmosphere in that sense. It wasn't like lads running the show or anything like that. I think it was more just like I was kind of like, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just gonna, we were almost done with our night, I was like, gonna carry on this. So it wasn't even anything to do with them. But yeah, I think for me, when I think traditional trad breweries, it's all like, it tends to be more like old men, and it doesn't feel like someplace that I fit in. So my instinct just doesn't think much. It doesn't think negatively, but I don't have any like things I'm like, oh yes, really excited about this. I'm just pretty neutral.
Yeah, and I was.
Give me a pint of it, I'd drink it. Like I wouldn't. It's not something that I'd boycott. It's fine. Good
beer is good beer at the end of the day. Sometimes Shepherd's Neame's beers not good, but some of them are. This one's quite nice. I will say I was quite surprised when I stumbled upon this International Women's Day page, because our friend Lou and I did speak to the head brewer at Shepherd Neame once at a Meet the Brewer. It was just before lockdown, actually, like literally a couple of days before. And we'd just come back from International Women's Day at Wildcard, and we said to him about it. We were like, oh, it'd be really cool if you could do like an event like that around here, and you're our biggest brewer. And he just went, the brewery's not big enough. And that was the end of that conversation.
Like, I guess. So I guess it's quite interesting.
So I'm glad
like, you didn't expect them to have...
so I didn't expect them to do something like this. So this is definitely like, they've obviously found a different way to highlight women in beer instead, which is a pleasant surprise. So I will put that in the show notes if anybody's interested in having a nosy at it.
Nice one.
Yeah. So there you go. That is Bishop's Finger from Britain's oldest brewery, and one of the oldest bottled beers. Cheers to
that. Cool. We're back with our second beer. Which is the Elusive and Partizan collab, which is called Mr. X. It's a 1916 mild. So this is the one that I sort of was like, well, I can get my hands on this one for sure. So let's go there. So basically, I'll just read the back of the label, because I think the back of the label is quite important. So it says, I just want to check. I don't want to... Yeah, because the top part is literally...
Just there.
Just the standard thing. I was like...
standard
bit. Cool, so just read the back for like a little bit of knowledge, insight into it. So it says, we've teamed up with long-time London friends Partizan Brewing to brew this mild based on historic recipe from 1916. Brewed traditionally using invert sugar number 3 and flaked maize, this mild is golden in colour. Target hops from Herefordshire. I always get British names are so confusing. I know it's Hereford. Herefordshire.
Like, you've got...
Yeah, but there's Hereford and then there's Herefordshire.
Right.
So let's try that again. Target hops from Herefordshire lend notes of citrus with a gentle herbal spiciness to finish. So yeah, serve in your favourite glass straight from the fridge, which we will.
We will, Andy. We will.
Do you want to crack that open and I'll sort of give a little bit of background information on that? So I did watch Andy is really good at sort of putting up either videos or blog posts or something about like when he releases beers like this. So he did put up a blog post and he did confirm. So I sort of started Googling like what were the 1816 mild recipes, like trying to see what I could find, to see if I could figure out which recipe they might have used. And it came up with Courage's XL.
Sounds about right.
So yeah, watched his video and he said it's based on Courage's XL.
Look at that.
So I was like,
good job, good research.
I was like, cool. I actually found exactly what it was that he was looking for. So I took down some notes of what he said. Let's see if you can figure it out for you actually. Before I tell you.
Number one, when you think mild, you think dark.
This is quite light,
and obviously this is golden. I have had a golden mild before.
I don't think I ever have. I think this is probably the lightest mild.
Only recently, I had a golden mild from Thornbridge at Peakender.
Ooh.
And I was like, ooh, golden mild, that sounds interesting. And it was. And it, like,
it's lovely looking. This is lovely looking.
Similar, yeah, I would say it's probably a similar recipe to this from the smell. I haven't tasted it yet, actually.
Yeah, this is probably the lightest one I've ever seen. It just looks beautiful in the glass anyways, with the gorgeous head on it and everything. Yeah, so in terms of aroma, what aromas do you get?
It smells super citrusy.
Mm-hmm.
Like marmalade.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good description.
It's really fresh.
He sort of mentioned, do you want me to tell you what he mentioned before you, on his video?
Yeah.
Which we can link maybe potentially if I can figure out how to pull a link for that. Basically he was kind of talking about like sort of caramel notes and he said like grapefruit. And I was like, grapefruit is not really, and I get that.
Yeah.
I was like, grapefruit is not,
what
doesn't
I'd
tend
expect
to be
from a
hand in
mild.
hand with
Like,
what I
a
put with a
mild.
mild. But it's exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah, I'd probably get like dark fruits in a dark mild dark fruits.
Ooh.
But
Oh,
did you just drink it?
I did. Oh, sorry, I couldn't wait. I didn't think my reaction was going to be so ooh. It smells, so I'm going to be real.
Mm-hmm.
The look lines up with the aroma.
Yeah.
But the look and aroma don't fully align with the taste for me. They're all good, but it's so, for me, quite contrasting. I don't think it tastes the way it looks.
I'm getting tangerine in the taste. It's got a nice body though.
Yeah.
That'd be the flavour.
But I feel like the fruitiness isn't as bitter, maybe as I was expecting.
Yeah.
When I think like grapefruit, sometimes I tend to think there's a little bit more like bitterness
Well,
there.
that's from your experience of having like grapefruity IPAs.
IPAs, yeah.
Because they're going to have those American hops in them that give you that grapefruit flavour, and then they have the bitterness from the alpha acids and resins. Like this, where it's used, what do you use? Target, do you say?
Yes, Target.
Yeah, which is funny because I saw Andy do a talk about beer, obviously, but like Elusive's beer, and then someone was asking him about hop choices and things, and he told everyone that if you're making a barley wine, you need to put Target in it. So he loves a bit of Target, obviously, which was funny at the time because we'd been having a conversation about how Target isn't a very popular hop. So.
To be fair, I mean, can I think of any other beer that I know for a fact utilises Target? No.
I mean, it's an English hop, so it's going to be...
But this might be the first one that I've tried that has knowingly had that in there. I don't recollect ever trying a beer specifically that I knew had Target in it, because normally my approach to trying beers will be, I see what hops there are, I kind of taste it, and I go, what do I pull out from it? And then I might go like, actually, you know, especially if it's the first time I've tried a beer with a particular hop, I tend to then go down the path, okay, let me look up the characteristics of that hop, especially if it's a single hop as well, and then try to pull out like what are those characteristics? Am I getting those characteristics? And when it's like multiple hops, I kind of like to go, well, the characteristics I'm getting, which hop do I think is coming through more, or do they all just work together really well? Yeah. And I don't recall ever having one with Target before.
It's probably not been pointed out that it's got Target in it, because people just say that it's got British hops in it.
But I mean, I would say this is a sweeter citrus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And I think when I say like, you know, it's different to what it looks like, it's because already, you know how we talk about like white stouts and black IPAs, and there's that contrast, and it sort of plays with your mind a little bit, and you go in with what you expected a mild to be. I didn't expect this mild to look like this, so that's already played with my head a bit, because I've gone, wow,
if you hadn't
looks shockingly different.
If you hadn't have read the back of it, and I hadn't have read the back of it, to say that it was a golden mild, I'd have poured it and been like, what?
But I just think in my head this whole time I was like, it's going to be even, you know, I was thinking it's going to be surely dark or something. Yeah. Especially when I bought it, I was like, it's going to be dark, because I didn't read. I literally just read it now. I always like to save my reading and my looking into stuff for when we're actually together, because I feel like that makes for better. A natural reaction makes for a better experience than me having looked at it and know what to expect. Not as fun. Not as fun for me, not as fun for people. But if you're watching the video, you can see how lightly coloured it is. And
it's literally like
that messed with me. And the aroma that came from that, I was like, okay, that's expected. And then it was just the taste, just tasted so much. Like you said, I think I'm used to when I think grapefruit, it's like grapefruit IPAs, there's a little bit more bitterness there, maybe some pininess there. Like this is just more like sweet citrus. Yeah,
and I definitely get that kind of earthy spiciness in it, which is lovely. Like, just kind of takes away from it being too sweet.
I really quite like this.
It's tasty.
Yeah.
Have you got any info on that recipe?
So I couldn't find anything necessarily about the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Andy was saying like this is really good to try on cask, and I think they did put it in cask, but unfortunately we're having it from a keg because
the Thornbridge one I had was on cask, and I bet
it was really good.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but I couldn't necessarily. I was looking for the recipe, and it was like quite hard to find anything that was like sort of recipe specific.
Yeah.
But I did think it was really interesting about sort of the process of like courage from where it started to where it is today. So I've noted down basically courage started in 1787 by John Courage.
Mm-hmm.
He died in 1793 at the age of 36 years old, which like that's Rick's age. Like,
well, back in the day.
But it said he died unexpectedly. There were no details. I was looking for like the hot goss. There was no hot goss. I couldn't find anything.
Nobody was spilling that tea.
No one spilled any of that tea. So at that point in time, it was under the name Courage and Co Brewing, or Courage and Co Brewery. Then, after he died, apparently his wife Harriet took over, but then she died in 1797.
Oh.
So not long after. From there, the managing clerk, John Donaldson, took over the business, and then the business was renamed to Courage and Donaldson.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
that was pretty much pretty much quickly right after that. In 1888, it was known as just Courage by that point. It then merged with Barclay Perkins and Co. in 1955. And the name transmorphed into Courage Barclay and Co. Limited. Then again in 1960, they merged again with a Reading-based brewery called Simmons Brewery, and the name changed again. It then became Courage Barclay Simmons and Co. Limited.
That's a really long name to get on.
I know. I'm just thinking like every time it's like it merges with someone else and then another person adds their name. It's like when you watch Suits and everyone's just like, oh, it's all these law firms and people come and go and the names get ridiculous and you're like, oh my goodness. So that happened. Then it was simplified just back to Courage Limited in 1970. It was taken over in 1972 by the Imperial Tobacco Group. And since then, it's gone on to be sold to Foster's and then bought back from them. And currently, it's sitting with Wells and Young's Brewing Company. That was as of January 2007. So I just thought I couldn't find the recipe for you, but I found a really long, like I was having to think about it, and I was thinking like 1700. Like I was just thinking about 1700s, like a brewery that's been around.
Not as old as Shepherd Neame, 1698.
Not as old as Shepherd Neame. Not as old as Shepherd Neame. But as I was like cycling through, I was just thinking like, oh my god, it's so old. Somebody.
I'm pretty sure my granddad used to drink Courage Best Bitter, and did you see the the logo for Courage was a cockerel?
Yes.
I
knew that.
I distinctly remember there being like a tray at my nan's house that had the cockerel with Courage on it, and I used to when I was really little. They used to be my tea party tray with my Little Pony.
I love how you're like, it's time for tea.
Bringing out
like a bitch, right?
That's it. I feel like that says a lot about my family.
I like it. It's good. But yeah, I thought it was I was like, oh my god, it's like changed hands more times than I can even begin to comprehend.
I've got to say, probably after 2007, you did start to see Courage Best Bitter back in like Lidl or Aldi. That's probably because Wells and Young have got it, because they sell quite a few of their beers in there.
I just thought it was funny that it's like it went to Foster's and then it was like
Foster's got rid of it
from Foster's and then like someone else, and I was just like, oh my word, like how many times has it merged and changed hands, and then it's like it went from Courage to this to this to this to this to this back to Courage, and then it's like, oh my god, it's exhausting. It is actually exhausting. But then I started looking up the recipes because I never actually, so when it comes to invert sugar number 3 and flaked maize, like I feel like flaked maize, that's pretty straightforward, that's pretty obvious. It sort of looks like frosted flakes or like just corn flakes, like cereal corn flakes. And apparently I was looking at some websites and like some home brewing websites, they were like, I want to recreate this recipe again. It's like people wanting to recreate historical recipes where there's flaked maize in it, and they're like, can I use just cornflakes? And people are like, yeah, I've done it. And like people do, by all accounts that I could find online, I can't verify because I've not done it myself, but by all accounts from what I saw on homebrewing websites, people did just use like cornflakes. Cereal cornflakes. And what I did think was quite interesting actually was how they make it. Also, did you know that you could use like popcorn or popped corn?
Like popped
corn.
I suppose so.
Yeah, apparently you can use popcorn.
I've put donuts in a beer, so you
yeah,
can
but
put
that seems
anything you
like
want in there.
I don't know, like popcorn just feels like.
Is there a reason why it's popped?
I don't know. There's just I saw a website and it was like various ways that
it'll be something to do with starches,
used.
I reckon.
It was also, to be fair, with the flaked maize side of things,
yeah.
like corn in general, it did tend to be used by colonial American brewers because
it was available.
It was a fermentable in the same way that pumpkin and fruit and other grains were, and it was quite heavily available, like kind of depended on the time of year, and sometimes it was like that was very, very heavily available, so that's what they used. And again, like when you go back to our pumpkin beer episodes, like pumpkin beers, like people just go, oh, it's gross, who does that? It's like, yeah, but like,
well, but that's what they had
from our viewpoint, because pumpkins aren't as massive as they are over there. Like in colonial America, that was quite a yearly crop. That
and it's probably quite a colonial, a colonist mindset.
Yeah.
That, we've developed barley to be used in our beers, and that's what was prevalent, what we've got, what we cultivated to make our beer with. But other places, that's not the readily available crop. So there are, like, sorghum. People they're like, oh, sorghum, what's that? Like, it's used predominantly in African brewing because it's a grain that is predominant on that continent. So it is just like
colonial America is like maize.
It's like right, and
maize
and pumpkins. Makes sense. Like it's just that like, well, this is the way that beer's made. No, it's the way that we make beer because that's what we had. And we then colonised everywhere else and made them do it too.
But to be fair, I feel like part of that as well was like over here as well. You had, you're a lot old, like Britain is a lot older than the US.
Yeah.
So at the time of colonial America, it's not like we had things up and running in a finely tuned machine where we did, but for a very new world.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were like, oh yes, we've established that every year we can definitely, without a doubt, grow this and this is how it's done.
Exactly.
And you have to get used to like slightly different climates and just a whole bunch of different things. So I thought that was quite interesting as well. And the way you make flaked corn, apparently, and this is just what I found online, I thought it was really weird and interesting, by steaming and pressing, which says thus gelatinizing and drying the corn through hot rollers.
So there's a step that you have to do. So when people are making like light lagers and they're adding corn to that, because by adding corn it lightens up the body, that has to go through like a pre-mash to gelatinize the starches. So that would be why that's done like that, because it's not so the starches in barley gets gelatinized in the mashing process, but corn isn't gelatinized until it's at a much higher temperature. So you have to do that first before it goes into the regular mash, because otherwise you won't get the sugars that you need from it to make it fermentable. So that's why they do that.
Yeah, and I guess as far as flaked maize goes, it's fairly common in British bitters and milds, so checks out.
To lighten up the body.
Yeah, and it was common in American light lagers as well. But the one that really intrigued me more so than that was the invert sugar number 3, because I was like, what the actual fuck? Like, I'd never heard of that before.
I've heard of it.
I'd never heard of it before. But basically, what it seems to boil down to, quite literally, it's a simple syrup.
Oh yeah.
Like when you read it, it's like made just with sugar and water, like a simple syrup. So I was like, okay. So I've like done all this research into it, like trying to Google what invert sugar number 3 is. Yeah. And it just, there's various ways that it can be talked about, whether it's in food, whether it's in drinks, whether it's like, it's all kind of in what you're making with that. But I couldn't find in the Googling I did, I struggled to find something that would hit on what I was looking for, which is like, what is invert sugar number 3 as opposed to number 2 or number 1, and is there a number 4?
So I would say, and don't quote me on this, but this is what I would say that probably means. So you get like, so it's probably the level of colour on that sugar. So you get like, there's the malt that can be used called carafa. You get carafa 1, 2, 3. Carafa 2 and 3 are darker than carafa 1. So it's probably a more caramelised sugar. And because like Belgian candy sugar that gets used in brewing comes in different colours as well.
So that was mentioned sort of as like part of it, is like in one of the articles I was reading, it sort of did mention that as well. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was basically saying it's just made from table sugar and water. And I was like, that just makes me think like simple syrup. To which I then found another article that said other names for invert sugar include artificial honey. And apparently that's technically the same as an invert sugar. Okay. But there's like elements of it that are obviously a bit different, more like sciencey stuff. That I didn't bother noting it down because I was like, I am not a scientist.
That's big sciencey stuff.
Yeah, it was. There was some big science stuff, but then it just said like also like regular honey. But I don't think when it says that's like the same thing that it is the same thing. I think they were just talking about elements and what it does. Yeah. Within a beer. Yeah. And then they were also saying like invert maple syrup. Basically, it says all maple syrup contains a small amount of invert sugar, but invert maple syrup is basically to a higher level. Okay. So that was interesting. Never heard of that either. And then inverted sugar syrup, and that's made with invert cane sugar. That's more used for like commercial baking and stuff like that. And basically, it's saying kind of there's like 2 types of that. So there's a 50% and a 100% inverted sugar syrup. So 50% still retains half of its sugar content as sucrose, but half is inverted to glucose and fructose. The 100% has had all inverted to glucose and fructose. Okay. Again, this is all very like sciencey for me. I was never great at science, but I did think that was like quite interesting. And I found like quite a lot of websites as well that sort of were talking about, it was kind of mixed because a lot of places would make these claims about like, well, people used back in the day, people used invert sugar because it was cheaper, it was more cost effective, like rationing. But then actually I read another article that was like, there's actually no basis for that really. There's been times when malts were cheaper than sugar and they still continue to use it. So they kind of said it was more, the sugar was used more actually, so that it was getting the flavour and the colour correct of what people wanted to drink. Like it was more sugar was creating a flavour that was more appealing to British people. So I just thought that was quite interesting because I initially went into this assuming that it was going to be a price point thing or a rationing thing or something like that. And what I came out with was, while that may be the case for some places during certain periods of time, I'm not actually 100% sure that that's like a hard and fast rule because, again, they kind of pointed out sometimes people continue to use it and it was the more expensive ingredient that they were going to put into it. So, yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And this is a lovely beer.
It's really nice. I've been waiting to like drink this so bad. I couldn't wait to do this episode, and I was like, "Oh, what's it gonna be like? What's it gonna be like?" And it's really, really lovely. Because I was thinking like a historic recipe, like how is it gonna either be in my brain? I was like, is it either gonna be something that's like so traditional and so like straightforward? Yeah, it's not though. It's not at all what I would expect, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not at all dated. Like it is because it's an old recipe, but I don't drink it and go, oh, that tastes quite old or quite dated, or this doesn't appeal to my
I feel
taste.
like if someone put that in front of you and said it was just a pale ale, everyone would be like, yeah, okay.
I think if I was looking at it, if I was tasting it, I think I'd feel like it was a little bit more complex than maybe
you think there's something more. You'd be like, oh, there's something interesting about it. But if you stuck like in front of someone without telling them it was a mild,
I wouldn't guess mild. If somebody put this in front of me and said, what is
and
this?
You wouldn't think it was like from an old recipe.
No, I think I would actually quite struggle with identifying what it is because I think the taste versus the colour would throw me off a bit. That I'd be like, oh, because you're right, it's like pale, but then also there's something very unique about it and complex about it in a way that like most straightforward pales, like you'd go, oh, I'm not 100% sure if that's right, but that would just be the best guess that you'd have.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how breweries go back to classic recipes and old recipes, because if you've got like our craft brewers, less so because they're so new in the grand scheme of brewing, like they're not necessarily going to have these things to draw on, but like your older breweries are going to have those old brewing books and that history that they can go and look back into and find interesting things, and by looking at these old recipes, that's how some of our beer styles got saved, by home brewers and by breweries trying to do interesting things, because they were like, that looks interesting, let's see what we can do with that. And I think as well, like, that's how wit beer is still about now, because someone found an old recipe, like someone really enjoyed it, tried recreating the old recipe, and then because that was popular, other Belgian breweries were like, well, we've got a recipe for that somewhere up in the attic, let's go dust it off and remake it. So there's I think this is what I really like about craft beer, is it can be very innovative with, you know, your crazy smoothie sours and, you know, beers that look like milkshakes. But you can also go back to the roots and really look at interesting things and see what you can do from there. And if you can tweak it, make it more interesting for people that are drinking today.
I think, like, I would actually argue that some of the innovation that we see today is just going back.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to, like, hazy boys. Yeah. And I just want to point out that I did find an article, and I've saved the link for that article, that said something about corny boys. Flaked maize, it said corny boys, and that made me laugh. Amazing. It was like corny boys, BOIS as usual. Yeah. I was like, amazing. So we need to link that just because it's an
hazy
article.
Boys.
I don't even think it's necessarily relevant to this episode, but I feel like we should link it because it's fun. It's cool.
Can we just do it right? So I think we now need to do a boys episode. We need a crispy boy, a hazy boy, a corny boy.
A corny boy. Honestly, that I didn't even read the article. I think I read 2 sentences of it, and I was like, hilarious. And it didn't have anything to do with what I was trying to find out. And I was like, but I love it. I'm gonna save that, and I'm gonna show Joe. But I would actually argue that, like, a lot of these breweries, because it tends to be sort of like the new hotness is like, you know, you've got very hoppy dippers and tippers and quippers and whatever else, or you've got stouts that are like quadruple ABVs and like all that kind of stuff. And I think everyone kind of makes this joke about, like, when you get really into craft beer and you get enough up your own ass about craft beer that you sort of come out the other side and you go, I just want a lager. I just want a really good lager. Yeah. And I do arguably to some degree think that's quite true. And I think naturally, if we're kind of going around in a circle, we go, okay, I'm kind of bored with all this, like, creative, like, it's hard to say because it's like bored with creativity. I'm never bored with creativity and innovation and all that, but when you kind of have similar things over and over again, you kind of forget to go back to basics. Yeah. And sometimes it's just nice to go back to basics. And I think, I would argue, part of that creativity is going back to old styles.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like the creativity and the innovation can sometimes be going back to a recipe that nobody's making. And it doesn't matter if it was like a really old recipe that was really popular, but you take that and you do something slightly different to it.
But like, so did you ever get to drink Midas Touch by Dogfish Head?
No, I've not even heard of it. I've heard Dogfish Head.
I managed to get it. So one time when I was in America. So they one time when I was over there, it was a beer where Dogfish Head managed to work with a biomolecular, can't even say it, biomolecular archaeologist called...
I'm not scientific, but I'm like, biomolecular.
You can say that. Called Dr. Patrick McGovern. And he found a vessel in the tomb of what they think is King Midas. Insane. And they kind of scraped the inside of it and did some work on it, and they think they found a kind of beer, wine, mead hybrid type thing that they were drinking back then, so like 2,700 years ago. And they came up with the recipe from their research and the biomolecular work on it.
That's fucking
of
insane.
The recipe of this beer, wine, mead hybrid. And Dogfish Head brewed it. And then they were like, bleh. So they then tweaked it.
They're like, this is fucking
they were like, no, this is not what anybody wants to drink.
Absolutely.
So they then tweaked it, and they added honey, muscat grapes. I think that was it. I think they did that because you wanted some honey from the mead, you wanted some grapes from the wine, and then brewed it in a regular kind of beer way. And they came up with this beer called Midas Touch, which is based on that beer that was brewed 2,700 years ago.
I love that they're like,
I mean, they tweaked it because obviously the actual beer, like the actual
do you think they tasted
beverage.
it and they were like, those people had no taste buds.
But it's what they had at the time.
buds.
Like, the barley wouldn't have been to the standard that we have it now. Like,
but do you think
you know,
they liked
they
it back in the day? Do you think they just tolerated it? Do you think they were like, this is the best thing we've had?
The processes wouldn't have been the same.
Or
like,
do you think they were like...
They didn't have hops. And I'm sure they would have used hops, like Dogfish Head would have used hops in it. They wouldn't have had hops, necessarily. They'd have probably used like a Brew-it type spice mixture to add to it. They probably, potentially, could have done the mash by like sticking a bag of malt into the river. Like, and then there's stuff in the river that's like, it's not going to be the sanitised way that we brew now. So really that was a really interesting beer. I think they still make it.
I think someone over here should try to make it and put
their
own twist on it.
If they do still make it, and listeners, you can get hold of one, try it, because I tried it and it was really interesting.
So it wasn't weird.
It was interesting. Like, they tweaked the recipe, and this goes to that innovation that we were talking about. Like, they took that ancient recipe when this is weird, let's make it so that people now actually want to drink it.
They were like,
and tweaked it and made it interesting.
We've got a good recipe.
So so that's it's fun. Old recipes are fun.
I'm interested in that, actually.
Yeah.
I want to try that.
Get your mum to find it when she goes home.
I think it'd be really hard.
I got it in Florida.
Like, literally never heard of that one.
Yeah.
Well.
Interesting.
And its cheese pairing is spiced.
Chèvre.
Yeah.
Chèvre. Asian dishes. Risotto, curries.
Oh, I love a good Asian dish.
And if you go on the Dogfish Head, because we're looking at Dogfish Head website, there's actually a little video on there. I'll link that in as well so you can see it. And there's an essay from Dr. Pat about it as well. So interesting. I wonder if they still make it.
We'll find out. We'll Google it.
It's not on their 2022 beer releases. That's sad. But I've had it and it was good.
Someone over here needs to make something similar.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Right, we're on to Holy Goat.
Yes, I'm glad that we're sharing them, because this would be
what percentage?
Quite a lot. 7.5 is actually not that bad.
Oh, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad. But yeah, this is their export stout, 1897. So this one, let me actually...
It's a can, everybody, not a bottle.
It is a
Old
can.
Holy Goat, so, I'm used to them being in bottles.
I'm just going to pull up the... It's not on there, which is...
No. There is no information on the can.
No information on the can. I know what it is because I've looked it up, but there's no information on the can. It's basically the information that you would see on the can that's not there. It's basically the recipe was inspired by the stouts of yore, strong, dark, and well hopped with all British ingredients. So it's in the late 1800s, these strong, well hopped stouts were brewed for export by Scottish brewers such as William Younger and Co. Using a base of pale brown and black malts, we produced our own version. So basically I tried to look up William Younger and Co. Because I was like, don't know much about them, to be honest.
Shall I pour it?
Yeah, do you want to pour it? Thank you. You're the mum today, or whatever that phrase is, you're the mum.
I'm mother.
Yes, that's it. It's in my version, so you're the mum. So I tried looking into it, and basically they began in 1749. So again, this was like another one that me looking into Shepherd Neame, being like, oh, it's quite old.
It smells nice.
Yeah. So started in 1749 in Edinburgh. They merged with McEwen's in 1931 to form Scottish Breweries. They then merged with Newcastle Breweries in 1960s and became Scottish and Newcastle Breweries Limited. And then they were acquired by Heineken in Carlsberg in 2008.
Boo!
So I was like, here's all the these like merging, and then I was like, then basically, as of 2008, they were Heineken and coffee. Whether or not that, I don't know if they're actually still up. That was the last that I saw, was they were there. Basically, like, in the 19th century. So what I found on Beer Advocate, because I was like, let me try to find things. I couldn't find any recipe in particular that, like, I couldn't find any of their like actual recipes or anything like that. Like, there was nothing, without doing a super deep dive, which I didn't do a super deep dive. I just tried to see what I could see. I couldn't find anything similar, but what I could find was on Beer Advocate, it said about them in the 19th century. They usually had 4 or 5 beers with a gravity over 1,100 degrees in their range. Yeah. And before the 1860s, they were shilling ales, so strong mild ales. They were, all the shilling. We talked about them in another episode.
Yeah, we talked about various different Scottish styles. So there's Scottish Light, Scottish Heavy, and Scottish Export. Are the 3, and they are 60, 70 and 80 shilling respectively, because that's how much a barrel cost.
It was like around there. So and then the 1860s they introduced a range of numbered strong ales, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay. So I mean, I've got a link to it. We can put the link there that kind of says more about all that kind of stuff about them. But I saw in Robert Chambers' book Traditions of Edinburgh. It says Younger's Edinburgh Ale was described as a potent fluid which almost glued the lips of drinkers together, and of which few could have more than a bottle of, basically. Few could dispatch more than a bottle. It got you real drunk, is what that means. So I thought that was really interesting, which is what sent me down looking what the ABV was, which is where I found the Beer Advocate thing. So I just, interesting. It's like I couldn't find that much on the recipes or anything like that. I'm sure that if I had done a proper like scrub of the internet, I could have probably found something. The problem was there was so much there, and I think the problem is when you have breweries like this where the history is so vast, and you have like buyout after merge after whatever else, it's not that you lose the history, it's like there's so much there that gets pulled up on a search. So I just thought, fuck it, let's just dig in and see what it's like. So I think we just dig into it and it smells beautiful. It smells chocolatey. It smells really chocolatey, but it smells... What I really like is that it has a smell of like a milk chocolate and not as much of like a cooking cacao. Yeah. Like a rich... Like it doesn't smell too rich. Yeah. It smells smooth, like a smooth chocolate.
Yeah. A touch of coffee in there.
Yeah, slight roasty, slight nutty in a way.
Bit nutty.
Oh, I like that. It's like nutty undertones.
Yeah.
It's very smooth.
It's very smooth.
I will say...
7.5?
I don't know, because I think it tastes about right for 7.5. I would even say that the booziness sticks out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I'm so used to having like dippers that are 7.5 range, and the fruitiness in dippers sort of like hides the alcohol, because it can kind of taste like when you have fruity cocktails but there's not actually that much alcohol in it, it kind of can emulate that, but there's nowhere to hide. I feel like this is like a no frills, really well done beer. There's lots of flavour there, but there's not these big adjuncts that are going to hide the booziness in the same way, but I would say it doesn't taste too much that it's not enjoyable.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. And it's like there's roastiness there, but it's not got that, like there's not too much bitterness in there with that roastiness.
I feel like that it's that roastiness that like when you do the exhale.
Yes, I was about to say, I'm kind of going
coffee notes on the exhale. With a little bit of nutty undertone there. Yeah. Not to sound like a total wanker.
Like it's creamy.
It is. It's very velvety.
Yeah.
I would say like if you told me there was some element of like nitro in it, I could potentially believe that, because it has that like totally velvety, smooth, light.
You can
touch
see. Look on the you can see the alcohol in it on the glass. Like
Leggies.
It's leaving legs behind.
Leggy.
Considering it's only 7.5.
Legs for days.
Yeah. And it's lacing quite nicely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So a famous foreign export. So it's an export stout. So that kind of comes in with the foreign export, foreign extra stouts. Very famous one of that is Guinness. They do a foreign extra.
I think we've had it.
Yeah.
We had it on
I think
episode,
we have.
didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did. And that's very kind of dried fruits in its flavour, along with the roastiness and the boozy. Whereas this is much more chocolatey coffee, which I think makes it a little bit. I don't know whether. I don't want to say it makes it a bit more drinkable, because I think the dried fruits probably works in a warmer climate, because it's being exported to warmer places. This is just a very nice wintry beer, isn't it?
Well, it's been a bit of a shit day out.
Yeah.
The day that we're recording, it's been absolutely chucking it down.
Mm-hmm.
I've been out sightseeing a castle in the chucking it down rain. The Airbnb's nice, but there's a slight bit of cold because it's open plan where we're sat, so the heat doesn't. It's not like I go in the lounge and I shut the door and you can trap the heat in there. Actually, it's not too cold in here at the moment, but it was like chilly outside, and then it takes a while to actually warm up. So it is like, I feel like it's the perfect weather for something. We just, not to date it, but we did just have bonfire night yesterday, so it feels very right for this time of year, to be fair. And I think the more I drink it, the less boozy it tastes.
Yeah.
I think maybe what's happened is we've gone from drinking around the 5% range and then jumping up to something dark, that's 7.5, has those extra 2%, and the fact that it's a darker, more like sort of like bold in that sense flavour has made it kind of stick out a bit more. But actually, now that I'm drinking it, I say it tastes about right for 7.5, but I would say it's very drinkable for 7.5%.
It's a sipper though. Like, you're not going to be chugging this bad boy.
I think you could, but I don't think you'd want to. Like, again, for me, I think I think the quality of it, you could. Like, somebody, if they wanted to, could chug it. It wouldn't be difficult to do it. But I feel like you'd really lose. I feel like it's one to sit because it's like something to enjoy, and you sit there watching a film or something and snuggled up on a sofa, and it's something nice and warm to snuggle up with. I feel like if you're going to just chug something like this, then what's the point of buying it?
I don't get the people that chug the really good.
No judgment. Like, if that's
do what you want to do.
If that's how you want to drink it, that's how you want to drink it.
You are missing out on the complexities.
But that's it. It's like
the levels of flavour within that beer if you're just chucking it down your neck.
And I think that this is something that I'm not going to say that in terms of complexity it has the most like depth of all these different like range, but I think that's why I wouldn't chug this, because it is so straight to the point with its flavours. It's exactly what you're smelling and seeing is what you're getting, and it's just easy to sip on and really enjoy. And I feel like if you were to just chug that, it would feel with the type of beer it is as well, it would just feel like you just, I don't know, it would feel like wasted. To me it would feel wasted, but everyone's entitled to drink it how they want. I just feel like this is one that's definitely for sipping.
It's for sipping. It is.
I like this one.
Did you find anything else interesting about it?
I like the label quite a bit.
I mean,
I like Holy Goat. Like,
Holy Goat's labels are great. So for those that aren't on the video, it's like a skeleton man with a top hat on.
It's fancy.
And
a beard.
He's got a beard. He's got a white beard. He's got a pint.
It's an aggressive beard.
Like, it's a big beard. It's like proper ZZ Top beard.
Yeah, ZZ Top.
He's drinking a pint, and it looks like he's like in a bubbling coffee. Having a bath in a coffee.
It does look like he's having a bath in a coffee. Yeah. Like a coffee hot tub or something.
Either that or he's being boiled in the beer.
It depends on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Do you want to take glass half full or glass half empty, literally? Or how do you want to view it?
And then it? It looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there's lots of snake skeletons. And then it looks like there on it.
Oh, lots of danger noodles.
Yeah.
Love it.
Noodles.
I love it. I love a good danger noodle.
Yeah.
Someone at work the other day asked me if I knew what a danger noodle is. I was like, do I know what it? Of course I know what a danger noodle is. Get
I wouldn't
out.
have known what a danger noodle
Or
was.
like a note rope. I was like, yes, I know
A
what a note rope is.
rope?
Did you not know snakes?
No.
Snakes. They're called danger noodles and note ropes.
Or just snakes.
It's not fun, is it? It's not how you get Minister of Fun, Joe.
This is true.
You don't Google Minister of Fun by calling a snake a snake.
You are the Minister of Fun. This is true. I've forgotten about that.
But yeah, I just think Holy Goat like kind of crush it, everything they do, to be fair. Like I always find that what they do, even when it is something like this, that's the no frills, it's such high quality.
Yeah.
And that's maybe why I feel like, again, it's a beer to sip, because it's such, in my mind, high quality, like luxury like it tastes luxurious.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that's a way that I can really describe
yeah.
it, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Let's sip this and get on to the next one.
Yeah.
Take 3. This is number 3. You're going to notice the camera quality
Has changed.
It's different. It's changed. Different viewpoint, different all that. Do you want to know why? It's because we've tried this now twice. And thankfully, neither of the times have we got towards pop in this bottle.
Thank goodness.
Thankfully, because we cannot recreate that.
Have some tech issues. My
But,
phone doesn't want to record. But it's fine.
Now we're going to rattle through it all again. So
We found it.
We're probably going to go with a bit of an ass on now, because we're going to be like, let's
Let's
just
go.
do this. I want to drink
Let's
it.
go. Right, so our
Lindemans.
number 4. Our beer number 4
200
is
years old.
200th anniversary blend oude gueuze from Lindemans, and it is called Cueve Francisca.
Can I have a guess why?
Yeah, you can guess why.
Francisca was the oldest daughter of a farmer, and they brewed on the farm.
I mean, she wasn't. She was just the daughter. She wasn't the oldest daughter. She's elaborating now. She's making things up. So,
You just tell us the truth.
Francisca,
The first
Francisca,
true lady of Lindemans.
she was the first lady of Lindemans. So she was born on a farm, and her dad had a farm, and he brewed on the farm. He taught her to brew. She then met a lovely man. Right. So she was the daughter of a farmer. He brewed on the farm, taught her to brew. She then met a man called Franz Lindemann. See where this is going. She got married to him. They started brewing on the farm. That was in 1822, and Lindemans was born. So we're at 200 years since Lindemans started. So they have produced a 200th anniversary blend in the First Lady's name.
And you can see on the label, she's very beer princess.
Yeah.
She's the beer princess I wish I was.
She's got a lovely hot-coloured dress
If you're watching
on.
the video, if you're not, just take our word for it.
Yeah.
That she is the beer princess that all of us want to be, really. And it's a lovely painted on label. Joe needs to
I'm gonna save
whack
this
this candle
bottle.
in there, let the wax roll down.
Yeah. So it's an oude gueuze. That means it can only be called that if it is a blend of 1, 2 and 3 year old lambics. This is actually a blend of 1, 2, 3 and 4 year old lambics. And on the website about this, they handily tell you which oak casks the lambics came from. So it's 20% from T1001, 35% from T1006, 35% from T1017, and 10% young lambic, which is from an oak cask foeder, which is T1014. The young lambic is what makes it a gueuze and makes it re-ferment and makes it all nice and fizzy. Then the entire blend was allowed to ferment for another 12 months in the bottle before it was ready for the public. They only created 20,000 bottles of this, and they have been shipped to 5 different continents around the world. And then the brewery also has 200 Jeroboams.
Jeroboams.
Okay, I've probably butchered that. They are 3 litre bottles of this, and they are going to be reserved for special occasions. And I feel like this is a special occasion.
Very special occasion.
Because we're in the same place. I can share it with you.
And I basically said that I can't believe she's sharing it with me, but
It's
unfortunately,
because we're besties.
she's
I've
already
got
put
to
it in.
now.
She has to now because we've done this 3 times now.
We're definitely doing
and
it.
It's definitely
We're
there.
definitely doing
it's
it.
happening.
Right.
Maybe this was the bottle's way of being
I'm
like,
gonna
no,
open it.
please.
Yes. I'm gonna open it.
It's not special
And
enough.
then there you go. Right, there's a cork. Right.
So this is the cheeky thing.
Belgian beer. You've taken the crown cap off, and oh look, there's a cork in it. I said I was like, I bet there's a cork in it. No, she says. She's like, there's definitely a cork in it. So I bought this in a set from beer merchants. My top tip, if you want to find out about interesting and unique beers, is to make sure that you are getting the emails from your favourite bottle shops. So sign up for their email lists. I got an email from beer merchants over in Hackney in London, and they had got sets of these in. So it was this 200th anniversary gueuze. There was the 2022 oude gueuze, and a creek and a blossom gueuze. We're gonna have to share that at some point as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds lovely. This is when it's gonna explode over everything, isn't it? Yay! It's not spilled everywhere. We're good.
Oh, it smells nice.
What a palaver. That is the definition of a palaver, I think. Is it still recording? I feel like I need to double check. Is it still recording?
Okay.
What an absolute palaver. Oh.
Ta-da! She fizzy.
I feel like I need like a proper
We should
champagne
have bought the champagne flutes. We've got the
got a Wild Beer Co.
we've got the Wild Beer Co ones.
Oh, cheers for that effort. That was a proper job there.
Cheers.
Cheers. We earned that. You earned that.
Yeah,
I tried. I was like, I quit.
oh, it smells lovely. I'm getting like
Fruity.
so fruity, like a bit of peach.
Fruity and funky. I love fruity and funky.
Oak, bit of funk. It smells creamy.
I think definitely peach. It is like a softer
Stone
fruit. Softer stone
as
fruit.
they like to say. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful bottle.
The photo, like you said, is painted
Yeah.
on. It's like a painted on bottle. It's like, it's always the thing of like, labels are great because you can peel labels off. But when it's painted on, there's like just some extra like elevated level of like beauty to it. But then it's almost like you can only have so many of those before you're like, shit, what do I start doing with the bottles?
Right. I know. I'm going to start decorating and then I'm going to run out of spaces.
And you have to make sure you like proper clean the bottles and everything like that as well, because if not, and it gets all like gross on the inside, so you really have to clean it out. And...
Guess what ABV this is?
Wow, that's a bit grapey.
Mm.
Guess the ABV.
It's a new game.
I feel like I'm going to say something and it's going to be a lot higher than what I think it is. I would guess like maybe 5, probably sub 5.
Right. 8%.
Fuck off.
It's so light and
It's
delicious.
very light and fruity.
It's dangerous, and it's 750ml.
Like it tastes more like a wine. It's not like
a wine spritzer.
a wine spritzer in
Yeah.
the sense it has that like Chardonnay grape
Smells so
quality to it and the sparkling element to it in a way, and it like feels like it would be lighter than it is.
Yeah, it's got a nice dry finish as well.
Yeah.
So it keeps making you wanting to go back for more.
That's the thing I mean, is like with the wine element to it, it has that white wine fruitiness but dryness.
There's a bit of creamy vanilla in there.
Mm.
I feel like this is the wrong season for this beer. Like this should have been like in the garden.
I got cheese. We can get the cheese out.
Get the cheese out. Yes, it's definitely a cheese beer. Not as in it's cheesy, as in you should drink it with cheese. You should drink it with cheese.
Wow.
Oh,
This is
I love
really good. Oh, it is. I just got hit with that creaminess.
Yeah. It's lovely. So the tasting notes from the website are: this oude gueuze pours a golden blonde colour, combining flavours of oak, citrus and notes of vanilla with a pleasing sherry aroma and a refreshing sourness. It is a dry, complex and beautifully balanced oude gueuze for enthusiasts and those new to the style alike.
I think I wouldn't have got sherry, but now they said it, I'm like, okay, I can kind of get that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, so they say, like, someone new to the style, but I think that I still personally feel like this is a potentially an acquired taste. Like, you have to be a person that... I do think that if somebody drinks certain types of wines or something like that, they probably would have more an appreciation for this than someone that's used to, like, trad styles or hazy boys or anything like that. It's very different to any of that. Like, I feel like if you're not a person that likes funky beers, it's going to be a struggle for you, unless you are a person that also likes that similar qualities, I guess, in a wine or something. But saying that, I think out of all of the funky beers that I've had, all the weird, like, funky fermentation stuff, like, this would probably be more introductory than a lot of other stuff, because I think there's a lot, it's all there, but it's almost a bit more mild. There's still lots of complexity there and lots of interesting characteristics about it, but I think sometimes, like, for some people, I like the funk. For some people, they do not like the funk, and the funk can be, like, really heavy. And this, I don't think the funk is overwhelming.
No, it's light. That just kind of adds a layer of complexity in the background. It's almost in the aftertaste that funk's there. It's just kind of like an earthy, funky bit at the back.
And you definitely get, like, the woody,
woody,
quality.
Oaky, definitely very wine-like. But it's light and spritzy.
It's like a sparkling, like some type of, like, a sparkling wine or a spritz or something like that. And I feel like if you were having it with the right cheese combination as well, like, and you weren't necessarily into this style, I feel like you could get into this style quite easily with it. Like, it's hard because I'm sort of in two minds when they're like, for someone new to the style, it's like, I'd be very careful about who I would gift a bottle of that to, like a very special 750ml, or opening it with someone that's new to the style and being like, cool, just have this because you like
this with just anybody, you know. I knew you'd appreciate it.
And I do, but I feel like that is that thing, if you bought it and you opened it, like, you can expect someone that's new to the style, even with as entry level as this is, for that to land in the same way as it will for someone that at least appreciates beer, even if that's not their normal go-to style. 8%. I cannot believe that's 8%.
8%. It doesn't taste like 8%. It doesn't drink 8% at all.
Not at all.
It's good stuff.
That's really good. Wow.
Good. It's a winner.
It is 200-year-old. Well, this is a 200-year-old, but 200-year-old brewery. We were saying when we were not recording that I still have a pumpkin one of the Lindemans, and I think
that's a Tinnemans.
That's Tinnemans.
Similar yet not the same.
Similar but different, but I've still got that pumpkin gueuze.
Pumpkin lambicus. It tastes like pumpkin champagne. It's so good.
I think I'm going to save that for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I've been saving one. I keep being like, nope, I'm saving that. I opened one because I bought two when I bought that, and I opened one for my birthday this year. And I've still got one. I don't know when I'm going to open it yet.
I think mine's definitely going to be a Thanksgiving one, because I feel like that's like a festive autumn special occasion.
Yeah, it's definitely that's a special occasion beer.
Wow.
Because I don't know if we can get that anymore. It was amazing when you found it, actually.
I think it was like on discount or something like that. And I was like, go.
Head of Steam had some, and you were like, oh, have you seen that? Look at this. And I was like,
God. I think I was looking for lambics for your beer course.
Yeah.
For beer tent. And I was like, I found this. Amazing.
And I was like, oh my God. And I'd had it when it first came out, and it was amazing. And then I bought two more. And I was like, I'm buying some more now. What is it like now? And
you told me it was good, and I was like, I'm just going to go with it because I'm putting in an order anyways.
And because it's a lambic, like, it was originally bottled, I think, in 2015. It can sit there for ages and develop more interesting.
Has sat there.
Yeah.
In a dark space, a nice dark cool space. Yeah. So I'm excited to take that one out. But yeah, I feel like, obviously we're talking about old styles of beer today, historic recipes, old breweries, and I think this is obviously an old brewery, but I think one thing to highlight with this as well is it's not just an old brewery, it is also a beer that you can age.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it made it onto the beginning of this recording or if that was on the previous two that didn't capture, but we kind of said like this style can sort of sit for quite a while and just get funkier. So get more interesting and just change the taste a bit. So it's like, if you're able, for me, I don't know, my approach is always kind of like when I can get at least 2 of something, I kind of like to have it initially when I get it, and then maybe make a few like notes on it, and then have it again after it's been aged for like a certain period of time, and just see kind of how has that taste changed and developed. And it's like, you can do that with this. So I think as much as this historic episode is about more historic recipes and historic breweries, like we should talk about the time that passes in a beer, like how you can hold on to them for a while.
Yeah, and like not all beers are appropriate for that. Like
wouldn't age a milk stout.
No, I have done that, and it wasn't
as quality. I mean, it still tastes fine.
It had a staleness about it that wasn't right.
Hoppy beers, don't do that.
Hoppy beers, because hops are volatile. The aroma and the oils are they're volatile, so they fade off very quickly.
Hops fade.
So that's no good. But your dark beers, malt forward beers, funky beers that are fermented with bacteria and things like that, they can all age and change really interestingly. Did you see someone posted in one of the beer groups the other day that they went to a tasting, and it was all like old beers. It was like barley wines and stouts and things that had been brewed for celebrations and then put aside. And they had pulled them out, and there was just this one big tasting when they had all these different beers. And it's like things like beers that were brewed for the Queen's Silver Jubilee.
Wow.
Like, you know, those have been laid down and then saved until now. Now, you know, we were up to a platinum before she passed away. So, like, that was a fair amount of time away, and those beers have sat there and aged and changed, and you can still drink them. I mean, open a beer, if you find an interesting beer, you're not sure whether it's going to be any good.
I would say, like, try it.
So,
when Rick and I moved house, it wasn't just beers, or we had, like, some spirits, we had some mead, we had, like, things that we just acquired. Like, it's like we went to Stonehenge for the umpteenth, 100th time, and I got some mead from Stonehenge. I've still got some in my cupboard from, like, the last time I went to it. Every time you go to the National Trust sites, they're always like, look, we make mead and apple butter and stuff like that, and then you buy them because you're like, oh, all right, I'll make a nice gift for someone, I guess. The last time we moved house, we had so much of it, and we were like, we're gonna get rid of it. But then Rick's like, what if we just tried them all before we got rid of it? And he's like, they're not exactly gonna make us sick to have one sip. So we sort of like would open one and we'd like have a sip of it, and then we were like, it would either be like, well, that one's alright, have a few sips of that, and then like, because it's like gonna go down the drain anyways, and it's like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, the stuff we're drinking, it's almost some of it was just too alcoholic to even get bacteria in it. We were like, nah, it's good. And some of it we're like, what's the worst that happens? Like, a slight stomachache, we're not having enough of it to like really matter. So we just like tried all of them, and some of them you'd be like, horrific, absolute, immediately no, and you'd just be like, bin it. And then other ones you'd be like, that's all right, put that to the side, and then we can finish that later. We had a moving house bottle try.
There is that risk though, that if you put down something really special and then you leave it too long, or, you know, it doesn't get stored properly, that you're kind of losing it. But, you know, sometimes you just got to give it a try.
I think I'm quite guilty of that though, to be fair. Like, if, you know, putting hands up, I've put hoppy beers down, for example, where, like, I bought it, and I bought it for a specific reason, either to do for a podcast episode or like a potential podcast episode, or like I was like, I'll come to you and we'll share it, or I'm waiting for the right person to share it with that's going to appreciate it, if it's something really interesting and different or hard to get, or anything like that. And I kind of go, I'm saving it for the right moment, whatever that right moment is, whether it's the right person, the right timing, the right season, whatever. And then it's kind of like you overshoot it, and then you miss that right moment, and then you kind of go, oh well, do I hold on to it for a bit longer until it is the right moment? Or then, oh, actually, now it's past it.
Just drink it.
And then you kind of go, well, I might as well just try to drink it.
Don't give it a rubbish review on Untapped, though. That's rude. Like, if you didn't drink it in, like, 3 months like you were supposed to,
if it's past its
BBE,
if it's past its BBE and or you've not stored it properly, and it doesn't taste the way you're expecting it
that's
to,
on you.
Good. That's on you. You don't
that's
rate
not on the brewer, that's on you.
You can check it in to go, I've drank it.
But don't put
don't rate it.
No.
I even leave a comment if it's something that I'll be like, old check-in, something like that. Like, yeah. If you don't remember, if you're, that's another thing. If you're drinking it half cut,
you don't really remember.
Don't review
it.
Even if you liked it, don't review it, because that feels a bit like unless you know for a fact it was like really really good. But then I kind of feel like if it's less than really high rating, even if you enjoyed it, it's kind of like. It's almost unfair if you're rating it lower than you might have because you were too drunk to remember the specifics. I don't know.
Untapped pro tips there.
Get off my soapbox. So what we learned is basically hops fade but funky is forever.
Oh, I love that. That's a t-shirt in the making.
That's what I'm here for. It's my only skill set. My only skill set is to come up with anything to do with writing and catchphrases and the ideas. I'm ideas who implement the ideas.
Let us know if you want us to open up a t-shirt store.
That's called Hops Fade Funky is Forever.
Funky is Forever.
I love it. I like that. Feel free to, like, if someone wants to use that, ask me permission and then give me a t-shirt and you're happy to use it.
Right. I think we're at the end now. We're going to go drink the rest of this.
We're going to go drink the rest of these.
Tori, if people want to tell you that they want us to open a t-shirt store, where can they
if you want some really good ideas for your t-shirt, if you want me to come up with really good ideas for your t-shirt company,
you can do that.
Or any good catchphrases for you, you can come find me. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You can come find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism, and you can also email the podcast on awomansbrewpodcast@gmail.com, and I will answer those. Joe, if people want to get a testimony for my skill set from you,
I can give you a testimony of how brilliant Adventures in Optimism is. Message me at my beer school, which is Love Beer Learning, and we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube. I always forget to put YouTube in there, but we're on there as well.
Always forget to put YouTube.
And or you can come to my website, which is lovebeerlearning at lovebeerlearning.co.uk even. And email address is lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. If you'd like to email me, there's some fun things in the workings that you should keep a lookout for, so come join me there. You can get hold of us on the podcast at A Woman's Brew on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and we are on YouTube as A Woman's Brew Podcast. So with that, we're going to go finish this bottle of gueuze.
Yeah, when you don't go on our YouTube, you miss these beautiful labels.
If
you know, you know.
Cheers.
Cheers.